If I say 18. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Q&A with Bro Diallo. I stole half the damn books. Anyway, what's up, everyone? Sorry about this week. My son had a surgical procedure. He had a open reduction internal fixation for a fracture of his tibia. So I've been kind of tending to him, doing some fathering and tending to his wound and getting him back home and working to get him to health. So anyway, I wasn't able to do the Bro Diallo show this week. And shout out to everyone over at Q4. I'll see y'all Monday morning, back on the grind there. And I know I'm behind on a lot of other stuff. Our farm, the Hales Franciscan Garden. What else am I failing at? The African World Coalition, all that stuff. NFL Nubians for Literacy, or Omni African Collective now. But anyway, like I said, I'm trying to get it back together. My son is in great health, good spirits. He's up and around, and he'll even be back to his classes and his programs on Monday. So we're getting back to normal. So y'all ain't got to worry about us. But anyway, but I still regret not being able to do the Bro Diallo show this week. So let's just try to have some type of compensation. And also, the last Q&A, Facebook froze up on me. So I'm hoping Facebook won't play a hate this time, and I'll be able to get Facebook and YouTube, or YouTube, Facebook and YouTube questions, as opposed to just having to stick mostly with YouTube. So I'm ready when y'all are. Y'all shoot the questions. I'll give the best answer. If I don't know the answer, I will confess that I don't know, and we can either try to work it out together, or we'll move on to something else, because I'm only going to answer what I feel I can give at least a competent answer to. So that's the deal. I ain't claiming to answer everything. Don't ask me about your horoscope. If you ask me about your love life, I know some things about the ladies. But, I digress. So let's go. Let's see if we have any questions yet. Facebook. Yeah, he's recovering well. He's doing well. Horoscope. I'm a Scorpio. I know that. And I've had, one time I was trying to holler at this sister and things were going very well. And she found out I was a Scorpio. She cursed me out and told me never to speak to her again. And that kind of turned me off to all the horoscope stuff. I've never been one to believe in horoscope, but that really made me resentful of it, because I thought that was absurd. She wouldn't even give me a chance. But I guess I'm glad she didn't give me a chance. She was crazy. Okay, let's start. Andy wants to know, what do you think Moorish individuals or anybody that subscribe to Moorish sciences? I think Moorish sciences is an escapism. But I guess I should, if you don't know what the Moorish sciences are, it's not a science. It's a belief system. There was a band of Arab African coalition. YouTube looks like it's wilding out again, but whatever. Not YouTube, Facebook. But anyway, there was the group. I'm sure you know, it's the Moorish occupation of Southern Europe. Between Spain, across Greece and Italy and the island of Crete and North Africa. There was a small semi-centralized, like a decentralized caliphate that infiltrated Europe. And they were called the Moors, or the Blackamoors. And these Moors basically brought navigation science, everything from global navigation science to basic hygiene to Southern Europe. And the Moorish occupation of Southern Europe is actually the reason why the Portuguese and the Spaniards were out ahead of the British, the French, the Germans, and most other European states in terms of circumnavigating the world, setting up their foreign colonies in Africa, Brazil. You notice the largest foreign colonies are either speak predominantly Portuguese, like Brazil, or Spanish, like the rest of Latin America and many Caribbean areas. So that was because of the Moorish occupation. Anyway, long story short, back in the early 1900s, some Africans got hold of this information about these Africans who went and brought civilization to Europe. And because they brought civilization to Europe, they felt like, you know, Africans civilizing Africans, that's nothing. But Africans bringing civilization to Europe, oh, that's something to really boast about. You know, the fact that we taught them. And a lot of Black people take pride in that. I don't think it's anything to take pride in. I don't think it's anything to celebrate what the Moors did or what the Moors contributed to Europe. I think the Moors, number one, were semi-colonized. Many of them were what we would call today Arabized. They didn't really reflect. They took African culture, custom, science, and created this hybrid of African culture, customs, and science and Islamic dogmatism to Europe and throughout Africa. And actually, if you read Dr. John Henry Clarke, he stated that the Moors, the African Moors, the Blackamoors, fell out with their Arab brothers because of the Arabs weren't adhering to doctrine. The Arabs were engaging in white slavery, the slave trade, sex trafficking, and all the other gangsterisms that every time we try to get with a people and try to have unity outside our race and get played. So anyway, many of the Africans who claim to be Moors have no biological, historical, cultural ties with the Moors from that era, the North African Arabized Black Islamicists of that era. But they want to claim or have some type of tie to the lineage of some Africans that brought some semblance of civilization to Europe. So it's really another, what I call anything but African ideology and cult. So anyway, a cult formed around that whole thing. I think it's nonsense. I think it's Black men dressing up in costumes, engaged in escapism. I think it's anti-African. And I think it's just another integrationist pipe dream saying that, oh, we have some deeper connection to Europe than we otherwise would have if we rejected the Moorish legacy. So when I think about them, I think it's, again, playing silly dress up and escapism for Black people. I think it's anti-Black self-hate and low self-esteemism. So not much. David asked, do I consider myself more of an Nkrumahist or Touréist, and why? If I had to choose as an Nkrumah or Touréist, as Kwame Ture said that he was, Kwame Ture said he was a both, a Touréist and an Nkrumahist. I would say I'm neither. And here's why. With Ture, he was a Muslim. And even more or less what they would call an animist or a mysticism. And they said that he believed that there was virtue in suffering. And he, even though he was a Pan-Africanist, there's a lot of things to his program that I would not implement. But I also wouldn't go all the way with Nkrumah with being so open. You remember his appeals to the North and his allowing Islamicist and Arab infiltration of the African Union. And he wanted so much to unify Black Africa with Arab occupied North that he even took on an Arab bride. So ideologically, I would say I'm more of an Nkrumahist ideologically, but in terms of practical application, I'm closer to a Touréist, but I would not be so because, again, he allowed himself to turn into kind of a cult of personality. People thought he had supernatural abilities, and he allowed that to be cultivated. So he kind of became the center, where if I was the head of a nation or a movement, I would never want me as the person to be the physical embodiment of that movement, because if I get compromised, if I get killed, if I just die of natural causes, then that's going to greatly weaken or disrupt the struggle. So there are elements of both men. I always refer to them. I'm always, going back to their examples and their teachings and their words for to inform myself. But in totality, I would say I was a Seco Incumbens or Kwame Tureist. And I think that actually, ironically, Kwame Ture is a better merger. The ancestor Kwame Ture was a fine balance between the two. So I would prefer to be a Kwame Tureist than a Nkrumah or a Tureist. I think we need mergers and elements of both of them to complete. And we learn as much from their missteps and their mistakes as we can learn from their accomplishments. Okay, Carl asks, hey Diallo, with all the damage being done to Earth's ecosystems, is there still hope we can turn things around? No, there is absolutely no hope, and I think that's a good thing. Hope is dope. The thing about hope is, as Jensen defines hope, is the longing for a condition or an outcome over which you have no agency. So to engage in hope pretty much is an acknowledgement that you have no power to act on it. So hope means that we can sit back and wait for white folks to fix themselves, wait for the capitalists to fix themselves, wait for the parasitic, insane religiosity, the Zionists, the Islamicists, the Hindus, and all these other nuts in power around the globe to fix it. So I think we should abandon hope. No, there is no hope, meaning that we can long for an outcome that we desire. The only way we're going to get an outcome that we desire is if we deliberately, consciously, and relentlessly do the work to bring about that outcome. I do think that it can be corrected. The earth has an enormous self-healing capacity where to return to balance. The earth has the capacity to reabsorb much of the carbon that has been emitted to the atmosphere through the oceans, through the forested plains, and regrowth. And you see, there's a lot of towns in the United States. Within a year of people abandoning space, human beings abandoning space, you see that the ecosystem regenerates and rebuilds itself. Even if you look at some of the documentaries and documents coming out of Chernobyl that had the nuclear meltdown, you see that humans, since they vacated that area, there are new ecosystems developing, even though they do still have background radiation and other mutations, that wildlife is re-inhabiting Chernobyl, that the plants are reabsorbing and re-burying what they call submerging the radiation. So the earth has an unbelievable capacity to recover. Nature has an untapped capacity to recover as long as you stop the damage. But you can't go into a process of healing while you're in the midst of the wounding. So I do think we still have an opportunity to save humanity, to allow the reinvigoration of the world's ecosystems. I do believe that we have an opportunity to restore balance between humanity and nature as our ancestors lived in for tens of thousands of years before those insane people, Urugos, came out of the icebox and disrupted everything. But that window of opportunity is closing. But it has nothing to do with hope. Hope is dope. We should abandon hope. Because again, hope is the longing for an outcome over which you have no agency. It is the wishing for something that you have acknowledged that you have no power to overcome. So you don't need hope when you have coordination, organization, analysis, resources, flesh and bone, human bodies that are willing to engage in the fight. And if you don't have that, you should be hopeless. So, and a lot of times hope that you find, it starts to demobilize people. A lot of Black people have hope that America will live up to its content of its creed. And through that hope, we trying to sit back. So I don't want to play the semantics games with you. So I understand what you're saying. Yes, we have the capacity. Yes, we have the time. Yes, we have the resources to fix this shit. We have not demonstrated the will. And that's what Pan-African education is about. That's what about advocacy for Pan-African revolution is about. That's why I do this Q&A, to try to invigorate, to ignite the will. Because beyond that, we have everything else we need. So we do, and there is time. And we don't need hope, fortunately. And the less hope that's out there, I think the better. Uh, what? Unnecessary contracts, birth certificate, social security card, voter's register, marriage license. Okay, if you think they're unnecessary, good for you. I think I have all those things. Kareem, I have just about all those things. But if you can navigate the world without it, let the rest of us know. Oh yeah, you can steal that hope definition, but I got it from Derek Jensen reading his book In Game. Just trying to give credit where credit is due, because people be stealing from me and don't give shout out, but I don't want to go down that run. What are my thoughts on the Extinction Rebellion? I think Extinction Rebellion is liberal nonsense because it's not a rebellion. What they should call it, I think I've answered this before, but if you're asking it again, then I should answer it again. They should call it extinction protest, extinction advocacy, extinction appeal, but it's not a rebellion. So these people are having seminars, they're doing the same thing after. It's just a remarketing or rebranding of the environmental movement. That's what Extinction Rebellion is. It's just a whole new remarketing in order to raise new money and put new leaders and new faces up front, because it's an old, crusty, dusty, busted ass movement. So I don't believe these Europeans when they talk about Extinction Rebellion, because an Extinction Rebellion means destroying the infrastructure that is causing the rebellion, destroying the oil refineries, collapsing the coal mines, and destroying the coal factories. That means dismantling the infrastructure from aircraft carriers to tank factories. That means divesting their funds. That means going to the borders of the European imperial nations and opening up the borders and allowing the climate and economic refugees to flood into these sovereign nations and set up shop. It means going to the World Bank. It means going to the Coke industries and dragging out the CEOs and board of directors and putting them away, if not bringing out the guillotine. There is no Extinction Rebellion. It is extinction rebranding. And I think that more and more people come to realize that there is a climate catastrophe. We're in the midst of a climate catastrophe. They know that more and more people are going to want to get active in the environmental movement. And so what the elites do is, let's create what they call a astroturf organization. Let's create a movement so that when people awaken and want to join the movement, we'll already have a movement with all of the rules and protocols and branding and labels and slogans already set up for you to filter into. So they know black folks are going to start waking up to this environmental movement, and that's why Bill Gates is investing in vegan food, and all these other industrialists. Elon Musk is investing in wind, solar, and underground transportation and living, and they got that vertical farming. So the capitalists are already setting up for the not even setting up to control the protests, but setting up to profit from the destruction of the world's ecosystem. So I don't trust Extinction Rebellion. Hopefully, because a lot of people joining the Extinction Rebellion movement, they're not hip to this. They really think they're about to join a rebellion. And what can happen a lot of times is like when Israel set up Hamas. Israel wanted to set up a Palestinian organization that it could control, because it couldn't control Yasser Arafat. They couldn't control the PLO. Back then, they control them now, but they set up Hamas, and so that they could have a controlled opposition. But they lost control of Hamas because a lot of young Palestinians joined Hamas and was like, yo, I'm about to join Hamas and about to join and fight for my people. And then what they eventually did was took control of the organization that was set up to control them. The same thing happened with SNCC. Remember the Martin Luther King and SCLC, they wanted to have a youth branch of SCLC, so they had the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and they thought that, okay, we're going to, a lot of young people want to join the movement. These old handkerchief head Negroes, as Malcolm X called them, where they weren't happy with how they were doing things. It's like, I'm not just going to bow down and let white folks spit on me, throw feces and urine on me, and throw bricks at me and call me a nigger while I pray in a circle. I'm not doing it. So they set up the SNCC for more direct actions, like sit-ins and what's that, ride along, bus rides and stuff. And that was meant to be controlled opposition. But SNCC gave birth to what? Black Panther. Remember, H. Rap Brown came out of SNCC. A lot of the militant Panthers came out of the integrationist movement into the Black liberation struggle and the Black power struggle. So if that happens, I hope that's what's going to happen. And that's what has the potential to happen. But as of right now, I don't give much credibility to the Extinction Rebellion. And I'm sick of these liberal whites calling their shit revolutions and rebellion when it's a reformist, integrationist, and protest movement. It's a liberal complaint, not a radical analysis. That's my thought on Extinction Rebellion. And the fact that it's getting all this play in the media lets you know it's some bullshit. And if anything, if you're a white person listening, forget Extinction and Rebellion. Go join Deep Green Resistance. Go join Earth Liberation Front. Go join, what's the other thing? Black Bloc. Go join some anarchist syndicalists. There are white radical movements out there. And let me tell you something about real white rebellions. There are white people rebelling. And you don't hear about them in the white media. You don't hear about them. And the fact that you see Extinction Rebellion is front line. They got all this funding coming from who? From where? White folks is hustling. And if you black, stay up out of all that. We got our shit. Oh, okay. Hello, Diallo. What do you think is the end game with all these anti-abortion legislation? Let me tell y'all something about anti-abortion. It don't mean a goddamn thing to those white men imposing abortion. They could give a flying fuck. They just had one of the leaders of, it was two different prominent leaders in the anti-abortion movement that were caught having their mistress, trying to coerce their mistress into getting abortion. But here's the deal with that anti-abortion. We got an election coming up next year, a major election. And the Republicans had fulfilled none of their promises for this poor white trash out here. These Trump voters, these real Americans, these goddamn Make America Great Again folks, they didn't get shit from the Trump administration. Not a goddamn thing. Economically, ain't a thing they could do with them, because the only way to help poor whites and the working class whites is to take more money from rich whites. So they're not doing that. So what they're doing is they want to be able to come in 2020 when they might have Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders or Beto O'Rourke or one of these Democrats, Kamala Harris, is going to come to white America and say, listen, the Republicans have done nothing for you. Remember Trump? Do you feel America's great again? Do you feel that America, Trump tax cuts? Trump said he was going to stop the war with North Korea, and North Korea is still shooting missiles. He said he was going to bring the troops out of Syria, and the troops are in Syria. What has Trump accomplished besides run around the country and hold rallies? So the Republicans need to be, and by this time next year, need to be able to go to the average redneck, meth smoking white American, fentanyl injecting white America, and say, this is what we've done for you, Billy Bob and Sarah Joe. And so the only thing they can do for the white masses, they got two things. Now, one, they had the immigration. You're keeping those goddamn Mexicans out of our country. That's one thing. But they've been doing that for a while. So they want to be able to say, now we got abortion. Because they can't tell you, oh, look at how much tax dollars you got back. I reopened the coal mines because that didn't happen. I'm going to bring back the jobs. That didn't happen. So what that is called in politics is called low-hanging fruit. You do something that's relatively easy, that doesn't risk you offending your base, and that doesn't really compromise your position. Because outlawing abortion only hurts poor and working class people. You know, if Bill Gates knocks up his mistress, if Donald Trump raw dogs another porn star and she gets pregnant, they can fly them to Brazil. They can fly in a special abortion doctor from South Korea. They got options. They've always had options, and they've always gotten abortion. And the Republicans, ever since the beginnings of the eugenics movements in the late 1800s, have always been in favor of abortion. So that's the real thing. It's not even about, oh, white people are dying. White people don't care about white people dying. The white elites, they don't care about that. Where do white men go every time they get some money and get rich? The first place they go is to a country with hardly any white people. They go to the Middle East, they go to Kuwait, they go to Brazil, they go to Bangladesh. They don't care about white people. Ain't no white love, ain't no white unity. Go back and find my old show on YouTube or the Bro Diallo website, Bro Diallo archives, and look up the myth of white unity. So this abortion thing that got all of y'all up in arms is nothing but red meat to the base. It is a political stunt. It's not going to hold up. Abortion is guaranteed by law and constitutional amendment. They can And so and also what it's going to do is going to tie up in the courts. It's going to have all these stupid ass evangelical Christian family value clowns swearing they got something and swearing that the Republicans did for them. It's a hustle. It is a hustle. Not saying that you should not fight. Not saying that you should fight to protect the right to abortion, access to abortion, safe, clean. But I'm not telling you don't do that. But what I'm telling you is their motivations. It's a hustle. So Antonio says, I had a dream that African geniuses and engineers built superior weapons to overthrow the Western world. I have some great weapon ideas that would only hurt Urugu. What do you think of that? I think that Del Jones' birthday is tomorrow. So let me quote Del Jones. 90% of warfare is cultural. Antonio, you could give Africans all the greatest weapons in the world, but if we are not able to change our consciousness, if we are not able to revolutionize our people, the greatest weapons in the world will only be a threat to us. Right now, I live on the south side of Chicago, guns everywhere. Guns like military grade weapons all over the neighborhood. Year before last, the first homicide to happen in Chicago happened one block on New Year's night. At about 1:15 a.m. The first homicide of the year happened one block from where I'm sitting right now. We got guns galore. We don't need drones especially. We got enough guns to protect our community, to drive out all of the parasitic businesses, to keep the police in check. And all of those guns are a greater threat to us than our enemies. So weapons are great. I'm not anti-weapon. I'm not anti-gun. Came up in Missouri. Hell, if you got rednecks, I'm a black neck. I'm a semi-country boy. So I ain't got no issues with guns. I motivate and encourage. One of the first things I did with my wife when we were dating was take her down to get her gun license and buy her a little revolver because she never owned a pistol before. So I got her guns. I'm not anti-gun. I'm not anti-weapons. But the greatest weapon you can have is consciousness. Erica? What in the world? You got that? Who was that? Sekou? Somebody's like leaning on the bell. Erica. Nobody answers me. Nobody. I got to take some more Umar classes. Nobody listens to me in this house. Erica. Lord have mercy. Anyway, so weapons or not, Kwame Ture once said, I'm going to paraphrase him, it is not weapons that win wars. It's superior organization and commitment to your cause. Say this all the time. A bunch of malnourished rice farmers in Vietnam using bamboo traps defeated the American war machine. A bunch of illiterate goat herders and nomads in Afghanistan defeated the U.S. war machines. A bunch of hungry insurgents in Iraq defeated the U.S. war machine. How many more examples is commitment to your cause? And there's a good book on there. There's a couple of good books on there. A book by John Lee Anderson called Guerrillas, and another book called Wars of Foreign Liberation. I'm gonna have to do this upstairs on that. So yeah, weapons are great, but weapons are an extension of the man and the woman. The weapons are the extension of the people, and the people are their consciousness, their identity, their worldview, their social theory. So as hard as you work on developing weapons, you should work on developing the consciousness, the revolutionary consciousness, the Pan-African consciousness of our people, or the weapons are going to become liabilities. They're going to be, forged against us. And you can give a brother a weapon and say, use it against the enemy. He crossed the enemy lines, and the enemy's like, oh, here's some money. Here's a Maybach Benz. Hey, you want to go on stage with Jay-Z? And the dude will turn around and he's gunning for us. So if you ain't got that consciousness, what I've seen consistently throughout history is that consciousness and commitment to your cause is what wins wars. I mean, look at even Cuba. Cuba was out. Oh, Erica, what was that? What was that noise? So he leaned on the bell like that? Anyway, sorry, I just heard it. What resources? Who's asking that? Tito asked, what resources do you use for homeschooling your sons? There they is. You see all that stuff? Little globe. And show you over here is another maps, some maps, and some books. Nothing special. And you see on the shelf there, that's some of my son's meds for his he's got blood I ain't gonna tell y'all his business, but y'all see them pills. I ain't got no new hustles working it. Those are all legal meds for his post-surgery care. But there's little beakers, and we've got some mathematic tools and some little plastic discs my wife uses. And that's it. You see the Nerf gun there? Teach him a little not to mess with me. I pop him with that Nerf gun. That's it. We got some electronics, little homemade helicopters and stuff. So that's it. Nothing. It ain't nothing fancy, you know. But we don't like homeschooling. We prefer the term community schooling because their education comes from the larger community, not just home. But ain't nothing but some books and some paper and some pens and pencils. Ain't nothing. We ain't fancy over here. We proletariat. I wish I had a more sophisticated answer, but at least it's honest. That's about homeschool. Oh no, it's Pierre. Got this damn Muslim. What you want, man? The Green Movement was created by imperialist forces. Oh God, what an idiot. The Green Movement was created by imperialist forces as a ploy to force development of impoverished nations not to develop their industries. So this clown thinks that the Green Movement is meant to keep Africa backwards, so Africa can't have nuclear power plants and sludge producing textile industry. Woo woo woo. And so and then you can't listen to these Muslims and these Christians and these Jews about climate change and preservation of the earth because they believe with their stupid ass dogma that the planet is just a way station. Oh, we're gonna go on high, we're gonna go on to glory. You're gonna ride a flaming horse onto paradise and hang out and eat falafel with Allah. Goddamn fools. It's telling them to cut down on industrial output. Yeah, we do need to cut down industrial output, and we do need to. But anyway, how would that solve the problem they pretend to concern? See, this dude thinks we're poor because we don't get enough European currency and European investment. These are these stupid black capitalists who think it's okay to destroy Africa's ecosystems. But anyway, that's Pierre. He's been on my back. I don't know how this dude find me, but he's been bumping heads with me about everything from evolution. And now he don't believe that we evolved from primates and that we are still primates. He doesn't believe that there is now he doesn't believe that the Green Movement is a hoax to underdevelop Africa, as if Africa wasn't underdeveloped a century before there was any such thing as the Green Movement, as if Africa wasn't underdeveloped and overexploited and colonized before there was any concept or understanding about the greenhouse effect. Stupid. Fuck out of here. Hey, brown-eyed queen. What's up, sis? Getting annoyed. Diallo, a few weeks ago, you made a post about self-confidence, self-esteem. You said you would explain further on your show, but you weren't able to do that. Care to elaborate now? I was going to do that Monday. You want to do that now, or you want to do that Monday for the Monday show? Anyway, I'll give y'all a little hint. I'll go into detail. There's this misconception that, that people who join cults or who are vulnerable to joining cults have low self-esteem. And so we run around telling people, trying to build people up. But that is one of the greatest misconceptions that I'm not sure why. Because any people who think that people who have a low sense of self or low sense of self-esteem are vulnerable to joining cults obviously have not interacted with people who are in cults or don't listen to people who are in cults. It's actually quite the opposite. People who are vulnerable to join cults have an overinflated sense of self. If you find even the lowest member of any cult, I don't care if it's the Asar Sex Society, I don't care if it's the Moorish Science Temple, I don't care. These are black cults. I mean, we can talk about Mormons too. You can talk about the Mormon cult or Scientology, Nation of Islam / Scientology. But if you talk to anyone who's embroiled in a cult, the Nuwabians, dare I say the Nation of Gods and Earths, but if you talk to anybody involved in a cult, you will find that they have a much higher sense of self. And the lowest ranking member of a cult often feels that they are superior to the person outside the cult because they have some knowledge, some wisdom, some practice, some understanding, some way of dressing, some symbols, some codes that puts them apart and therefore above everyone else. This is the same thing for spiritual people. These are people with overinflated senses of self. So instead of getting out here trying to protect people with low self-esteem, it's really people with overinflated egos who thinks that the universe speaks to them, or they have some divine science that's above and beyond, or that they are immune to the issues that plague the rest of humanity. So that was my basic point. So I want to talk about why there are so many cults, not just the ones I named, but there are so many cults in the Black community. And there are secular cults. I ain't just talking about y'all religious nuts, but there are secular cults, bayhives, and all that, secular cults, and why cults are so attractive to the Black community, how destructive they have been for many decades to us, and what we need to do to avoid, dismantle, discredit, and distance ourselves from cults. We need, as Kwame Ture, organization, organize, organize, organize. And there are certain characteristics, and a lot of organizations pretend to care about uplifting the people when they really, their main purpose is to self-perpetuate the organization because it is a revenue stream for the leadership and the control. So cults have plagued us. Cults need to be checked. And if we don't check the cults, they're going to continue to be parasites on our liberation struggles and continue to miseducate and distort reality for the masses of our people. And we get enough of that of our oppressors distorting our realities and lying to us, where we don't need to start profiting, lying to and profiting for each other. What are my thoughts on Mansa Musa? I've written about 3 articles on Mansa Musa. I'm going to keep this short. You can go to my YouTube and just not my YouTube. Go to my Patreon blog. Oh man, this goddamn internet. I don't know where I'm at on this thing. Go to my Patreon. I write very specifically. Number 1, I conclude that Mansa Musa was Arabized. Number 2, I don't like wealth accumulation. I don't care if it's an agrarian society, a monarchical society, African society, or European society. I am a socialist, so I do not stand in favor with any individual, regardless of your rank or lineage, collecting billions or millions of dollars of resources from the people. Nobody on this planet has ever done $1 million or even $1 billion worth of work. So every multi-millionaire, billionaire is a parasite, including ancient parasites or modern day parasites. And also, he is the one who played a significant role in further weakening Africa's, if you read Chancellor Williams, the cataracts are the barriers we set to delay, to reverse, to stop the Arab onslaught, the Islamic onslaught. He was played a big role in opening up West Africa to the Islamic hordes. And he piqued the interest of many of the Islamicists when he made his Hajj to Mecca. And they were like, wow, that's a lot more gold. Africa has more wealth than we remember. So he went out balling out of control, big pimping into Mecca and Medina. He went big pimping, flossing. And then the raiders and the thieves and the invaders and the colonizers saw how much money he had. And so they followed him back and continued to rob us and intensify their onslaught against Africa. So I have no respect for Mansa Musa. And I know y'all get black pride from that kind of shit, seeing a black man ball out like a white man, see a black man behave like a European monarch, but I don't respect that shit. I don't care if it's a black person doing it. I'm not an integrationist. So when I see segments of our community or individuals from our history behaving like Europeans or behaving like our Arab oppressors, I don't freaking celebrate that shit, and nor should you. So fuck Mansa Musa. He's not a historical hero. To me, at best, he's a historical cautionary tales. If you got something, keep it. And don't go flossing in front of your enemies. Antonio, my favorite singer, Patti LaBelle, is a parasite. Hard truth for me. I don't know if she was or not. But if you think so, according to my definition, then so be it. On a totally unrelated note, what's so remarkable about 1994? 1994 is the year I became a registered radiographer, graduated from State University of New York, SUNY Downstate. But this shirt, what's significant about this shirt is I think Old Navy was Founded in 1994. Let me see that. Okay, 1993, 94. Well, Old Navy, I got this shirt like 6 years ago at Old Navy, and it was like $2. So what's significant about this shirt is it fit me and it was only $2. So I've had it about 6, 7 years, but that's the best. So, but to me personally, I got my, I became a registered, I passed the national exam to become a licensed radiographer. I worked in that field for many years, many years. If you look at the last Q&A, people talking about when I worked in a prison, snitching on a brother. Have I considered writing a book? Yes, I am currently writing a book. I just had the introduction edited, and I had the edit sent back to me by our editor, and I'm co-writing a book on a Pan-African book with a prominent African scholar and cultural icon. We are collaborating on a book, and I've been sworn to secrecy, but it will be out by the end of the summer. And I have another book. Actually, I have my notes here on my whiteboard that's behind the laptop. So yeah, it's on and popping. So there'll be at least one publication, if not two, coming out from Bro Diallo this year. Yeah, I am old. I never deny how old I am. Look at this gray. I'm amazed that I made it this far. Shoot, I wasn't supposed to make it, chump. You know, I came up in Kansas City. They was clipping cats, man, clipping niggas from 90. Man, shit. I ain't even supposed to be here, but I was here. Okay, TC. When affluent black people, in theory, move back into the hood, does it harm their less affluent neighbors? Does it inherently aid in gentrification? It depends. But generally, yes. Because what do you mean by affluent? So if they come there with Western values, many affluent black people got to affluence the same way white folks got to affluence by exploiting the labor of the working class and poor people. So yes, if Jay-Z moved into my neighborhood, it'd be fucked up. I don't want Jay and Bay to move back into my neighborhood. So what will aid our neighborhood is not having rich niggas move in, but for we who already live here in the hood, you know, all my neighbors is black on both sides of me and across from me and behind me. I mean, one brother got a white wife, but I don't hold that against him. He black, so. But my neighborhood is all like 99% black, and everybody in this neighborhood, there are black people in this community that have skills, everything from technical to political. They have cultural art. They have mechanical and skills. That there are enough skills within a 1 mile radius of my home. There are enough black skills to create a functional, vibrant black enclave right here. So we don't need rich black parasites to come back and rescue us. We don't need Jay-Z to come fly up the block. We need to start coordinating and working together. We need to start pooling our resources. We need to come into the realization of the necessity for black revolution. So I don't want rich blacks to move here unless they're coming here to commit class suicide, unless they're coming to work with us to subvert their fellow affluent blacks. So that's the thing. But also black people, they can drop. Black people can't gentrify because gentrification in this context literally means turning white. So if they move here and they're still blacks, and let me tell you another secret. Last year, was it last year? I don't know. I'm old as the sister Wangisi said. I'm old, so I don't remember when I do things, but I know what I did. I went to Sag Harbor, which has a huge affluent black community. A lot of them are West Indian, African, and Black American affluent people. This is where the black doctors, the black engineers, the black entrepreneurs. There's a horrible movie called Peoples. It's called Peoples. It's supposed to be a comedy. It's a horrible, horrible movie. Yes, in 2003, a romantic comedy called Peoples. We the Peoples. It's Peeples. That movie was set in Sag Harbor, which is just outside of the Hamptons. I went to Sag Harbor with all these wealthy black folks. The first time I ever went to Sag Harbor was probably in 96. I went to Sag Harbor. And there was all these wealthy black folks. Now I just went either 2018 or 2017. My son and I went there, and we saw that the rich black people are being gentrified. Black millionaires are being displaced by white multimillionaires. So even wealthy, traditionally affluent black communities are being gentrified. So gentrification is not just about money, it's about race. It is ethnic cleansing. And since many of the surrounding white neighborhoods are saturated with all these, .com rich white folks and the old money and the new white money, they're encroaching on the affluent black community. So even rich blacks get gentrified. So black people, I don't care if Oprah moved in next door to me, she can't gentrify because she's black. She can drive up prices, disrupt the community and all that other stuff. But she can holler at your boy, we can work something out. But black people can't gentrify other black people. Like black people can't be racist, black people can't be gentrifiers. Only thing we can be is submissive, oppressed, or rebellious resistance. That's the only options left to us on planet Earth. Okay, Zahir, I don't know if you answered my question because my phone died, but the question was, what do you feel about black people who say people are the original Native Americans? I feel that they are deluded. I feel, again, that is self-hatred. I think black people want to be anything but Africans. We existed in this country for almost 3 centuries where white people told us that we were apes, that we were savage, that African people never created anything of value, and that the greatest thing that ever happened to us is coming under bondage. So there are many black people who understand. There are some black people that just say straight up, I want to be white. They surgically alter their African features. They try to intermarry like Stephon Clark before the cops clipped him. He went and had reproduced with a non-white woman in order to have lighter skinned children. We bleach our hair. We wear blue contacts. There are many black people who don't want to be black because of that stain, the curse of Ham. They say we are the descendants of Hams who are cursed to be enslaved. So a lot of black people have succumbed to white people's rhetoric and lies about our lineage and our heritage. Some black people, they don't want to be white, but they still have succumbed to the lies about our heritage. Therefore, they want to be other than black. And they know to say, I want to be white is not acceptable. We finally kind of got a little bit of that crust off our third eye. But what they say is, I'm not black, but I'm not white. I'm native. I'm Moorish. I'm Arab. I'm Asian. I just got some black Hare Krishnas come at me. We got black Mormons. So you got black people trying to escape from blackness because they feel that there's a stain on our race because they're not educated. That was the whole point of the Black Books movement and the Afrocentricity and the Black is Beautiful and the Black Pride movement is to rebuild our psyches, to reestablish our identities, to reassert an African worldview, an African beauty standard. But some black people don't want to do that fight because it's hard, painful work that can take your life, that will take you all your life. If it doesn't kill you early, it'll make you wish you were dead. It's not pleasant work to rebuild a broken people. So a lot of people, instead of doing the fight, they escape. They try to go join another team. And they'd rather be at the bottom of a established European paradigm. They rather go join a Native American paradigm and they rather be at the bottom of somebody else's shit than to struggle to build up their own shit. So I have no respect for these black people who claim they're Indian. And yes, there are many black people who went and fought with the Indians. There are many black people who escaped to live on Native American reservations. My grandfather, Sonics Bowie, was born and raised on a Native American reservation in Oklahoma. He had the corn silky hair. He had Native American lineage. And let me tell you something about most black people that come from Indian country, the Oklahomas. Let me tell you something about them. They generally hate. The actual black Indians are not very fond of Native Americans because Native Americans are racist. A lot of black people got Indian blood. And you know how we got Indian blood? The same way we got white blood, because we were enslaved and raped by Native Americans. I'm not beefing with Native Americans. I understand compounding oppression. I understand displacement and disruption, and a lot of people that come under Western colonization, Western genocide, start to do things. Hell, Jewish men were raping Jewish women in the concentration camp. That I understand. If you take a bunch of rats and you put them in a habitat and you don't give them adequate food and adequate mental, psychological, emotional stimulation, the rats start to cannibalize each other. We're mammals. It happens. I understand it. That don't mean I gotta forgive it or overlook it or deny it. I understand it. And I understand we all gotta fix and heal, woo, 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 woo. But allow me to say, Native American blood is nothing for Black people to celebrate. Native Americans, many of them, not all of them, have demonstrated that they would prefer to align with their white colonizers than their Black fellow resistors. And to the extent that they do that, we gotta be real with it. Now, the ones that reach out to us in resistance to imperialism, we can come up with some agreement. But the ones who don't, go look up Cherokee expulsion. Over 3 times, the Cherokee Nation has voted to kick out its Black members and to vote in white members. So any Black person running around saying, I'm Indian, we Native, any Black person is a Black person who is engaged in self-hate, self-rejection, and, as Bobby Wright said, a pathological denial of history. We African. Don't come to me, because my grandpa, shout out to Sonic's boy, hard man. Like Nipsey Hussle, or too much, worse extent. Yeah, true. Chris asks, how can we better bridge scholarship and activism in our struggle for liberation? Good fucking question. I think that scholarship needs to be more practical, and activism needs to have a greater appreciation of scholarship. There are a lot of activists who shun scholarship, because what scholarship does to activism is basically a detailed, critical assessment and oversight. So if I'm an activist and I go out and say, well, I'm an anti-police brutality activist, and what we're going to do is we're going to lobby the Secretary of State, we're going to do voter registration drives, and we're going to do die-ins at Christmas at the mall, and we're going to encircle the police headquarters and chant for 2 hours. Because I'm an activist, I'm about that action. I ain't with all that talk. I'm out here in the street. You ain't out here in the street. And so you do all those things. And then when you do those things, what an academic will do would take a detailed list of the problems, take a detailed assessment of your tactics and strategies, and take a detailed assessment of your projected outcomes. And your projected outcome is to reduce or end police atrocities, police homicides, police brutality, unjust incarceration, deployment, dehumanization of people. So if you're doing all this action, and then you have an academic stroll up and say, well, I've done an assessment. In the 2 years that you've been engaged in these activities, police brutality has gone up by 8%. Therefore, your activities have had no measurable impact on the agenda that you seek to advance. So you are actually not even stuck in the place, you are falling backwards. And so then people are like, oh, you got all them books. So that's why a lot of activists hate academics. It ain't because they don't do work. In fact, I know quite a few academics, and I've never met an academic that was not willing to engage in physical labor. I've never in my life met a pure academic. I've met a lot of pure activists who were not willing to engage in critical thought, analysis, data mining. I've met many activists that were not willing to engage in thought, but every academic I know, and if y'all know of some academic, famous or otherwise, who are just stuck in them books, point them out to me. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying those type of academics don't come to the Black liberation struggle, because the Black liberation struggle will have your ass starving, butt naked, cold in the streets. So if you're the kind of academic that want to rest on your ass, you tend to go into formal academia, which is Western academia, like Skip Gates. You tend to be like Skip Gates. Or you tend to go into the not-for-profit, white not-for-profit. You go and work for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You go and work for the government. You go and join a government bureaucracy. So the non-working academics tend to shun Black Activism, black liberation struggle, black radicalism. They shun it because ain't no money over here. And it won't really allow you to comfortably sit on your ass and do nothing but talk and read. So every academic I know that is an African-centered academic, scholar, past and present, they've all been willing to do the work. The problem is they're not willing to do senseless, mindless drone work. They want to do work that is informed by research, that is consistent with history, that is in the proper context of the agenda that it attempts to advance. So I see more of a problem, not so much of academics being unwilling to do work. I see more workers who are unwilling to do academics. And you can say I'm biased or whatever, but I think the historical record backs me up on that. Okay. Let's go to Facebook. I'm neglecting Facebook again. Sorry. Let's see if I have any questions on Facebook, but I don't trust Facebook no more. They don't show me the questions as they come in. See, it's loading. Okay. Let's see if we have any okay. Which African revolutionary has the best position on dealing with Abrahamic religion in Africa? I do. But besides myself, Chris asked that. Who has the best solution for Abrahamic religions in Africa? Does it have to be a living academic? Because most African academics, even the revolutionary ones, are more accommodationist. They think that we should wait. Let me just say that again. Which African revolutionary has see, it just, god damn it. Okay, Chris's question was which African revolutionary? Most African even revolutionaries like Kwame Ture had an accommodationist position on Islam, simply because they felt that Islam is too embedded, that we could decolonize Africa and allow Africans to freely choose who to worship, even though there's no African on this planet, past, present, or future, that has freely chosen Islam or Christianity or Judaism. There's not one African. I know there's a lot of Africans who believe they freely chose to worship and freely Islam is peace. I know that, but not one of y'all. Every single African came to Islam by a point of the saber, or a descendant of Africans who came to a point of saber. And if your daddy taught you Islam with a saber to his throat, then that saber, just like you inherit your daddy's religion, you inherit that saber to the throat. But hell, let me just say, damn, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. I know, I know Chinwezu, I know Dr. Ben. I would say Dr. Ben. Has the best solution. He says, we should abandon those religions. But if you're going to, no, let me take that back. Dr. Amos Wilson had the best position. Dr. Amos Wilson said, if you're going to follow Islam, if you're going to follow Christianity, you have to do it the way it says. Read the goddamn books and apply the goddamn books. So he said that Islam and Christianity are evangelical, exclusionary, imperialist religions. They're not religions of kumbaya, all come together, or peace. So he's like, if you're going to be an African Muslim, then create an African Islamic empire, just like they created Arab Islamic, and you even have Asian Islamic empire that don't include non-Asians, even if they're Muslims. He said Christianity is a religion of warfare and conquest. So if you're going to be a black Christian, get your conquest on. So, but one thing Amos Wilson said beyond that is actually read the books and correlate the books with the history. So I know I've been devangelizing for many years now, and I can say that I have convinced, especially when I was talking to some brothers, and I had brothers contact me from jail and say they were thinking of converting to Islam, or going from Islam, or getting deeper into Christ because they're incarcerated. And I talked to them. And so I've managed to prevent black people from converting to Islam. I've managed to convince other not really convince. What generally happens is there are black people that want to leave that mess alone, but they really don't have the confidence because there is no support in the community for that. There's no support for free thinking, humanism, atheism in the community. See, black people ignore black atheists. They ridicule black atheists. They suppress black atheists. They deny that black atheists are atheists, and then they claim atheist is an African because they've blinded themselves to this reality. So, my position on it is we have to devangelize. I no more accept millions of Africans bowing to Allah any more than Arab leaders and Arab militants would accept millions of Arabs embracing Ifa. You go to any Middle Eastern or Islamic country and you find a shrine to Shango. You find somebody, a ritual to Yemaya. They would literally kill their own people if they started praising African gods. And I don't see why we are so accommodating of alien gods. So don't give them space on our land. Don't give them space in our minds and hearts. That's my position. But Amos Wilson said, if you're going to be in this shit, actually know this shit. Because a lot of black Muslims, they know some Arabic words and slangs. They don't read the Hadith. They ain't read through the Quran. They don't understand the original language, and they haven't read most of the translations. So I'm not satisfied with that answer, Chris, but it's the best I could do just now. Are all entrepreneurs capitalists, even small business owners? All entrepreneurs are not capitalists. The only way to be an entrepreneurial capitalist is if you underpay your employees what they generate. Now, I owned a business, Cafe Seed, and our employees did not just get their wages. They also were given a fair share of the revenues that were above beyond the expense and their wages. So as we profited, our employees profited. Also, we did not sit at home as owners of the business. We did not sit at home and allow other people to work. Like the Walton family that owns Walmart, they don't go to Walmarts and help stock the shelves, strip and buff the floors, to work the registers. The Walton family doesn't even greet people when they walk in, which is probably one of the easiest jobs at Walmart. So we were not just owners, we were owners and workers. So we worked in concert with our employees. So if you are a business owner or an entrepreneur and you work alongside and with your employees, and even if you're in a managerial or administrative position, if you're working too, you're not generating profits. What you're doing is generating earnings. Earnings is income that you've worked for. Profit is income that other people work to create and you take. You feel me? So, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to pay your workers a living wage, give them a percentage of the profits. Therefore, you don't have profits. Everybody's collecting earnings. Give them opportunities to have input into the business. As we own this cafe, my wife did the accounting and the books, and she was the lead chef. I ran the juice bar. I did greetings. I also waited tables. And we had input where the workers were able to, because, we had this one young lady, single mother. She worked the table. She was really good at working those tables. And no matter how crowded we never got stressed when she was on duty. So when it came time to make decisions related to waiting the tables, arranging the tables, how to take orders and prioritizing the food, she was able to give input. And I wouldn't, nor my wife would say, well, this is our company. We tell you what to do. So you give the workers dignity, you give them input, and you allow them to share in the profits that they generate. Therefore, you can be an entrepreneurial, but a socialist entrepreneur. And if you really want to take it to the next level, let your employees know you can, if you don't have capital invest, you can take an ownership stake and you can build up and create opportunities for ownership. So then it is cooperative and it is owned. All the workers have an ownership stake. And if they're not interested in an ownership stake, like we had one guy that came there to work and he was a student and he was planning on moving to Florida and becoming this big time artist. So he didn't want an ownership stake. So you don't work him up. He doesn't get integrated into the business. But as an employee, we give him proper compensation share into the wealth. So you can be a business owner, an entrepreneur without being a parasite. But the problem is you're not going to get the big house. You'll be able to have a modest living. You'll have modest comfort. You'll have security, but you ain't going to be private jets to Dubai. You can't go jump off a yacht with Beyonce. You won't get to that level if you are a socialist, cooperative, non-parasitic entrepreneur. But if you have entrepreneurialism is about having an idea and turning that idea into a viable enterprise. But you can work without exploiting. You can work without being a parasite. And you can share in the wealth. You can pay people a living wage, and beyond paying them a living wage, give them a proper cut of what they create. Because our workers generated wealth and income for me. And I help to create an apparatus for them to do that. That doesn't entitle me to 100% of the profit. That's crazy. So not all entrepreneurs are capitalists, and most small business owners, if they get up and go to work that job and unlock it, even if they got some employees, no, because they're earning income alongside their employees. They're earning income alongside their employees. And if you say, like my wife, she did the books, she came up with the menu and the recipes. You know, me and her were there many a nights after all of our employees went home, scrubbing and prepping for the next day. So yeah, we did bring in more, only to the extent that we generated more income, not because we were the owners, but because we took that extra step. So everybody was, in my opinion, compensated fairly. There was no parasitism or exploitation for that business. So yes. Antonio asked, do you think some level of educating Blacks of our position on the planet is a form of escapism? No, education is never escapism. Our people know our position and aren't budging, but continue to educate is a way of hope. Number one, education means to bring out. That's what the word literally means, to bring out. So education can't be, by definition, can't be escapism. Motivational speaking is escapism. But if you are defining the world and then instructing or informing someone their position or standing in the world, that is not escapism. In fact, it is the opposite of escapism. And that's why educators are so hated. All you got to do is go on social media and type in one explicitly honest thing, and look how much hatred you get. So people, education by a definition can't be escapist. Also, continuing to educate people is not about hope. I learn new stuff every day. I've evolved so much just in the last 5 years. I learned more every time, from moving to New York to Missouri to Chicago and Illinois. Every time I make a move in this country, I learn something new. As my children age, my son was injured and in the hospital. I've got all this new instruction. I've never had to, care for an injured child with a severe injury like this before. I'm learning shit all the time. It ain't got shit to do with hope. So I don't sit here and I hope my son gets better. I sit and talk to the physicians. I work with him on his therapy. I make sure he gets up. He can't just lay down, even though he's in pain. He's got to get up and move, get the blood flowing. I am learning on helping him to heal and how to deal with this situation. Monday, I got to help him get out and about. So I don't know how education ever degrades into hope. In fact, the more educated people come, the less they talk about what they hope. They start to talk about what they can do and what they will do. The more people are informed. So no, I do not believe that education is ever fruitless. I don't think that education is ever escapism. And there's no evidence that education causes people to have delusions. And one of the biggest delusions is hope. I think education, true education, correct education, empowers people. What education does is help people actualize and realize their potential, and it helps people to define the world, define their conditions, and place themselves in that condition, then give them the tools and the insights in order to navigate, whether that's to elevate within or to have opposition against. So I am very pro ongoing education. And when I say education, I'm not even talking about formal education, even though I support people securing formal education and formal training. But I'm talking about lifelong education. I graduated, I got my master's degree and decided to end my formal education many a year ago. And you think I ain't stopped learning? In fact, I do more work now than when I was in school because my schooling, if you know anything, especially about grad school, is very focused. You can only read about certain shit on certain topics, you know. So getting my undergrad master's degree, or when I was studying radiography and studying anatomy and pathology and radium physics and studying all that shit, I hardly got to really study about it. But now that I'm out of school, my education has broadened because not only did I learn specific things, in school, I learned how to engage in research, how to cross-reference. Hell, I learned how to write a proper sentence, which helps me to articulate my views to other people. So, let's not degrade education. Let's not misinterpret what education, because education will not set you free. You can be an educated slave. You can be an educated prisoner. You know how many Jewish PhDs was sucking gas in a goddamn gas chamber? So education is a tool. It's an instrument. It is not, oh, I got my degree, so now the white man gonna respect me. So let's not devalue education, and let's not distort or overvalue education. It is what it is. Yes, Salam said, he said, learning certain things about history, I feel like awareness is a burden sometimes. Awareness is a burden when you're in a anti-intellectual, menticidal community. Knowing shit ignorance is truly bliss. And so what I encourage you to do is start to construct around yourself a community. I'm the first person I ever know to become a vegan. But once I became a vegan, I started to interact with other vegans and going places where vegans go and doing things that vegans do. So it wasn't I didn't feel like such an outcast because I had created a community. When I became when I was a black militant, when I was an Umar militant, patriarchal, sexist, irrational, angry black man, all of that. I went and I had a whole community around that. And then as I began to evolve, they kicked me out of that community. I didn't say I'm leaving the community. What I did when I became more of a rationalist instead of a militant, but more of a rationalist, more of a Pan-Africanist as opposed to a black nationalist, I tried to engage with my people like, listen, I still want to be free, like we all claim to be free, but this ain't really, and I tried to explain, they was like, step off. So anyway, the best thing to do when you have this burden of awareness, of consciousness, of deliberate conscious living is to start to reach out to people. And I believe you me, I don't care where you are, you in the big city or the backwoods, generally there's always a few other people who feel as isolated as you do, who are on the same mission as you. So you got to really start to reach out. And I know it makes you feel vulnerable, things like that. But go to cultural events, go to green events and things of that nature. Go work in the community garden and you'll start to find people. So a burden is only a burden when you don't have enough people to carry it. Seriously. So the one thing that could be a burden, as more people join you, it becomes a pleasure. Working that garden, farming, when it's just you, it's a burden. When it's a whole community, it makes you look forward. I can't wait to get to the garden and there's music and there's little babies running around and stuff. So you can turn a burden into a community if you find people to share it with you. I don't know what came out in 1994. I know my favorite artist from the 90s. My number one artist from the 90s. Let me see what let me see. I'm just trying to see. I think this album comes out in 94. I have to make sure. And so I can tell you right quick. I don't have that level of recall. But I know what I was into back in 94. So 93, Black Business by Poor Righteous Teachers. I liked it that. And Pure Poverty, I love that. New World Order So poor righteous teachers were hot in the early 90s. I think they're still, I mean, it's poor righteous teachers are rest in peace to Father Shahid, but Wise Intelligent is still banging out bangers. Um, I bought Illmatic and people said I was a sucker because it wasn't a real album. It was more like an EP because it didn't have that many songs. X Clan. I remember Far Side. There's a lot of good shit out in the 90s. But of course, Boogie Down Productions and PRT, Jungle Brothers, the whole Native Tongue family, De La, all that old nigga shit. I remember Coolio. Actually, if you like Coolio, there's this conscious political album they had called WC and the Mad Circle. Ain't a damn thing changed. Go peep that if you want some real 90s West Coast consciousness. Yeah, Ready to Die. Yeah, I remember that. Saw the Dream. Word Up Magazine. How do I think the banning of abortion will affect the black community? Now that abortion is banned, black women will stop having abortions and we will rise up and become a majority in America. And when we outnumber white people in America, we will have a democratic plurality and we will have our freedom and take control of America and America's military and resources, and it'll be liberation. Because that's what these stupid motherfuckers who've been trying to tell us that black women are the #1 killers in black genocide and Margaret Sanger and all that. But what's going to happen is that more black women are going to be injured as a result of doing homemade botched abortion. So it increased the level of death and injury for young black women and black mothers. Also, there will be more black women incarcerated for breaking abortion laws. And of course, no matter what the law is, they always impose and enforce the law against us more aggressively. So there'll be more black women incarcerated, more black women will die, more black women will be cast into poverty. And then not only will there be more black women cast into poverty, there will be more black women stuck in abusive relationships with significant others, sexual abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, because they don't have the option, because they have children and they're not able to direct and control their own reproduction. Therefore, there will be many women will choose to stay within abusive environments or relationships because that they don't have the resources and they have these children. So it will be very bad. Death, incarceration, abuse, poverty. And we already have all of those things while abortion is legalized. So all of those things will be increased. You can't claim to be in favor of black children or black women, and by extension, black men, if you are against reproductive rights, reproductive health, access to abortion. And I hate this slogan, but I have to repeat it. The feminists say abortion on demand without apology. I support women who choose to have an abortion to get an abortion. Oh, and not only black women, black children. More black children will be neglected in poverty, boom, boom, boom. Same thing. But I think, and I've asked Planned Parenthood workers, I've asked black radical feminists, why don't you say healthcare on demand without abortion, as opposed to just abortion? So a black woman can die of breast cancer, a black woman can suffer from tooth decay, a black woman can have vision impairment, and none of that can be addressed, but you'll want to make sure she can get an abortion. Now, I think she should have an abortion, but I think all healthcare and medical procedures should be on demand without apology. But because, and I also, in 1994, when I graduated, I went to work in a trauma center. And I went to work at this hospital in Queens, St. John's Hospital. And there were young ladies. One time there was a young girl, I think she was 12 or 13. She came in, she had profuse vaginal bleeding. And she went out and had a homemade abortion. And through this homemade abortion, she went to Coney Island in Brooklyn and got on the Cyclone, some roller coaster, because one of the girls in the Wayward Girls home where she was staying told her, if you ride a roller coaster, you can get an abortion. So she got on this roller coaster and rode it over and over and over until she felt a little sting in her gut. And then on her ride home, she started bleeding. So instead of going back to the group home, she came to the hospital. I know another girl who had this righteous boyfriend. In fact, I saw this guy a few years ago. She had this righteous, radical, pro-black woman alpha male boyfriend. The guy had just left his wife to be with her, and his wife had just had a less than 2 years old. But I'm the only time I ain't trying to put people's business in the street, but I'm just trying to tell you the kind of shit black women are about to go through en masse. Anyway, this younger girl got pregnant who was much younger than him, and he wasn't ready to have another kid. He was still resolving things with his ex and fighting child support, and he had immigration issues. So he basically had her take a bleach douche her vagina with bleach in order to abort the baby. Another dude I know induced an abortion in his girl by having her throw back Hennessy and other alcohol because he knew that alcohol would harm the fetus, and if it wouldn't kill it outright, it would damage it enough where it would self-abort or they would have to abort it. And they did lose that baby. And this is the kind of shit. It ain't just, I know the feminists like to say, the coat hangers. There are many ways that men, I think Ice Cube had a song back in the 90s where he talked about kicking this woman in the stomach. He had sex with the neighborhood hoe. If you remember that name of the song, post it in the comments. And he said he was going to hire his homeboy to kick the girl in the stomach because he didn't want to be trapped with this baby. So there will be a lot more physical assaults and other inductions. I have to tell you something, and I know if your mommy and your daddy didn't tell you, women have been getting abortions for as long as women have been giving birth. And women will continue to get abortions. In fact, not only do women get abortions, since you evangelical fucking religious fucking idiots believe that God gives life, do you know almost 40% of impregnation, almost 40% of fertilized eggs self-abort? And that's just the record. So by the time they don't keep records on all self-abortions because most women don't report it. Women having sex, the man ejaculates on her, she misses a few periods, and all of a sudden she has a bloody stool or bloody show, and then all of a sudden her period comes back. And that little fetus, that little cluster of cells just ejected itself. So almost approaching half, depending on where you're taking statistics, that God performed that abortion. It wasn't a medical abortion. It was a biological, natural abortion. And I know you black men, especially religious black men, they pretend they have such a love of that little cluster of cells, that little fetus. But they don't love them fetuses. It's like Snoop Dogg. I don't love them hoes. They don't love them fetuses. They love the control and power that it gives them over women. So it's going to be very bad. As bad as by the time you got white women out here in the streets screaming and hollering, going on a sex strike, if white women are scared, it's like Professor William Mackey said, white folks catch a flu, we catch pneumonia. White folks have a depression, we have a panic. So you see these white women out here hooping and hollering and hashtag sex strike. Just take that and double it tenfold, and that's what it means for our black women. And another thing about population and abortion, and y'all pretending like voluntary abortion is equivalent to genocide. If you look at the statistics, women have only had legal access to medical abortion since 1973. I'm as old as abortion in this country. And if you look at the black population statistics dating back to the good old days when Dr. Umar likes to talk about 85% of our children were born in wedlock, if you look at that time, you'll see that our percentage in the population has held steady. Our percentage in the US population did not drop when abortion became legal. It has held steady. Why? Because most women who have abortions go on most women who have abortion, for one reason, is they have as many kids as they feel they are capable or willing to take care of. And many women who have abortions in their youth go on to have children later in life. So abortion does not destroy a woman's capacity to reproduce. Abortion simply gives a woman the option to reproduce on her own terms when she wants to or don't want to. And a lot of people are like, how can you be Pan-African and pro-abortion? My position is, motherfucker, if you're not pro-abortion, you ain't pro-black woman. And if you ain't pro-black women, you ain't Pan-African. There's more black women on planet than black men. And I, for one, by and large, I know all women don't fit in this category. But I trust women enough with that decision. I respect and I trust women to be able to say, I'm giving birth, I'm aborting, and that's you, and I support you in either one of those decisions, even including my wife. If my wife turned up pregnant tomorrow by some guy, because I know I ain't doing it, shop is closed. But if she turned up pregnant and she says, I'm giving birth, there you have it. She says, nah, I can't do this. I'm old, you know. Therefore, and like I said, your Egyptian ancestors that you worship so much, they supported abortion. There ain't a living species that reproduces sexually that doesn't have abortion. So really, the number one abortionist in the country is God. And let me say one more thing. If you live in Chicago, you can go to the Museum of Natural History, the Museum of Architecture. They have an exhibit about the development. They have a really detailed development of the fetus, from the fertilized egg all the way up to the newborn baby. And they were like, abortion kills a baby. So I came in, I brought some pro-life Black people into that exhibit. This is like 10 years ago. And I said, is this a baby? They said, no. I said, is that a baby? They said, no. I said, is that a baby? They said, no. And I was like, well, this is about the time where they cut off the woman's access to abortion about here. But you don't define any of these things as a baby. So, but you say abortion kills a baby. Well, it has the potential for life. Yes, it has the potential to become a baby. So does an individual sperm. And another thing, impregnation is all on us. Women can have full sexual pleasure up into and including orgasm without pregnancy. So a man can have sex with a woman, and a woman can orgasm 1,000 times, and there's no potential for pregnancy. The only orgasms that lead to pregnancy are ours. Our pleasure is tied to reproduction. A woman's pleasure isn't. A woman's orgasm is not tied to her ovulation, as far as I know. Maybe some of y'all got access to medical journals I don't know about, or y'all believe in mysticism. So, unplanned pregnancy, if men were able to control our drive for pleasure. So really, unwanted pregnancy rests on us more than it rests on the woman. Because a woman trying to get down, trying to get her rocks off, and ends up pregnant without wanting a child that leads to an abortion, or without the capacity to care for a child, or without, on demand. Most of it is the man's fault. If you engage in non-ejaculatory sex, then you're not going to impregnate the woman. So a woman's pleasure is not tied to reproduction, but ours is. So if you don't like abortions, check your homies. Check yourself. But then I don't know how we put it, pregnancy, that's the woman's duty. No, not really. Because like I said, she can get off without any risk of pregnancy. But if a man and a woman together, if the man says, I'm going to deny myself an ejaculation, then no pregnancy. Where the woman can come all over the place. I don't want to get too graphic, but y'all grown. Okay, I'll look for the post on abortion. It's kind of a graphic post, but anyway. I'm gonna call it a night because I can smell dinner cooking. I appreciate y'all. Bro Diallo show will be live and direct starting Monday. I apologize, I missed this week, but again, my son had major surgery. Johnny, I owe you an apology. I know I wanted to put together a meeting for the African World Coalition. We're trying to invigorate, I don't know what, computers, man. Let's turn that off. But anyway, I am working, I'm grinding, I'm pushing. So I'm behind on a lot of things. If you've been by the garden, you see the garden is a mess, but the struggle continues. Thank you, ML. I'll definitely share your sentiment with Romo and Dr. Mingo. Oh wait, good night, y'all. I can't play. I gotta have some outro music. We want to be professional here. But I would like to know that song where Ice Cube said he was going to kick that girl in the stomach. And back in the day, there were a lot of songs about women trying to get paid, trying to get over on black men by through pregnancy. And now them same dudes that was teenagers in the '90s that are old G's now that wanna hoop and holler and cry about abortion. But yeah, you can tell them. Bro Diallo supports a woman's right access to safe, medically sound abortion. And I guess we'll end on that note because I know a lot of cats gonna get on me. So good night, and I see y'all when I see y'all. Peace. How do I stop this thing? Oh,
I've been in this game for years. It made me an animal. It's rules to the shit. I wrote me a manual.